Welcome back to the Marketing Moment. This is episode 2. I am David Barry, founder of DB and Partners. We produce this podcast now on a weekly basis. So if you heard our first episode, this is the second. It's funny how those things work in sequence. You'll have a lot of good times with my obvious renderings and pointing out of things. So happy to introduce also on the microphone, Nicole Williams, who is our director of digital media. And also joining you for the first time, but we'll be with you here moving forward, is Julia Reynolds, who is our digital specialist. And we have an awesome episode for you today. If obviously you have not tuned in before, this is the first time hearing from us. We are an e-commerce agency focused on the brain and body. So if you learn it, eat it, or wear it, we help you sell it. So as you can imagine, the types of themes and things that we're going to cover on our podcast are related to exactly those types of subject matter. So today, we're going to be diving into influencer marketing. But before we get into the main entree of our episode, we're going to kick off with the Digital Dash, which is our top news stories in digital marketing for this week. So I'm going to hand the keys to Nicole to tell you a little bit about some headlines we've pulled for you.
Yes. So headline number 1, Reddit launches in-house creative agency KarmaLab. So with KarmaLab, yes, it will be very similar to what Facebook Ads Manager offers. However, this quote is from Reddit directly, in which it will be an offering that includes social listening and trends reports, step-by-step community management, creative workshops, bespoke 360-degree campaign development, and more. KarmaLab is a full-service creative strategy agency delivering campaigns that resonate with and add value to Reddit users while driving meaningful results. So with all that being said, I think something that we can dive right into is, David, your thoughts on how this will impact digital advertising and kind of the social landscape right now.
So it's interesting. So help me understand a little bit. So is this an agency for Reddit advertisers in particular, or is this an agency that Reddit is going to go outside and use on multiple different channels?
So it sounds like it might be a programmatic offering of sorts,
Gotcha.
But it will be in-house. So if advertisers want to strategize or leverage Reddit ad products, they would go directly to KarmaLab to do this.
Sure.
Again, it's very similar to kind of the account manager direct service one would receive with Facebook advertising.
It's interesting. I mean, we'll put it this way. I think those who love Reddit are obsessed with it. If you could talk about the people who are fanatics about any one social channel, I think you could argue pound for pound, people love Reddit more than they love any other channel if they love it. So,
I do, yes.
So yeah, exactly. Like it's just a whole subworld of people who are in there talking about their subreddits like they're just places that they actually live. And and I think it's always super amusing. But I think you're seeing more of this is the in-housing of agencies, and it's ironic supposedly because of the fact that we ourselves are an agency. So we in certain times have dealt with this where clients are starting to take further things in-house, but it's also the channels themselves, like Facebook, providing more hands-on service to advertisers. Is they know that there's a need for these services. They know that people are looking for additional support and expertise. Who better than somebody who's backed by a very successful, digital / social channel / blog site, whatever you want to call Reddit, and than them to sort of say, we know what's cool, we know what sticks, and we know what gets people to pay attention. So obviously I think it could bode really well for clients, particularly those who have an interest in getting onto Reddit and making a name for themselves. And what do we know about Reddit, right? We talked about the different niches that are within the category on that site, but people spend a lot of time on there. Like, Facebook, you might get someone to scroll thumbs for, 6 minutes and then they're out. Reddit, they'll camp out for a night and never go to bed, just getting lost in the weeds. So, I would be interested in learning more. The move doesn't surprise me. There's a lot of smart people at Reddit, and their ability to proliferate what they've used on that channel for any number of other purposes is perhaps an obvious one. They have credibility, and it wouldn't surprise me if they become a strong player.
For sure. And I think that Facebook groups a couple of years ago, the reason why they kind of brought that out of the woodwork was to compete with Reddit, essentially, right? Yeah. So I definitely think it will be a difference in the landscape to that respect. So jumping into headline 2, the rollout of shoppable inventory. So this one is super interesting. Earlier in May, Amazon announced beta testing of a new feature that would allow users to make a purchase directly from their IMDb TV using their Alexa or Fire TV remote while watching an ad. So something that Julia and I actually discussed with Amazon kind of taking over literally everything. When you pause a TV show right now, you can actually see all of the actors that are in a particular scene. And basically with the buyout of IMDb from Amazon within the last few years or so, they're able to basically like pull in and aggregate all of that data on cast members, the director, et cetera, who the actors are, and they display it right on your Fire TV. So super cool feature. So taking that idea in mind, basically this is the same premise. It's just applying like an Instagram shoppable post to what you're watching on your Fire TV, which is super cool. So NBC, Universal, and Hulu are also kind of looking into this, it seems like, and they're trying to strategize ways in which they can actually compete with it. So David, tell us your thoughts on this.
Wow. This doesn't surprise me. I mean, the ability for things to be shoppable has been, and it's funny, right? We just talked about Facebook adopting something from Reddit.
Yeah.
And now we're going to be talking about Amazon adopting something from Instagram and other channels too. But, you know, obviously like the shoppable posts became a really big deal because Instagram was this place where everyone was going to get inspired once upon a time by everything in a Hefe filter. But the shoppable Instagram posts obviously was a great way to make the things that you already like easier to buy. It's the same thing that is happening here. And it's kind of tying the influencer world to the retail world in a very literal way. So rather than like having to go to a social channel, you're watching the main place where you're seeing the message, probably, you know, namely your television device, because it's not true TV. And immediately saying like, wow, Daenerys is wearing something, you know, really cool from the fall catalog and Game of Thrones. I'd love to put that on. And terrible example. But you have the opportunity to do that. So I think this immersive commerce or immersive shopping, whatever, you know, buzzword, crappy word that people are going to come up with to sort of describe this, is really as simple as what Amazon's trying to do here. It is make it as easy as possible for people to access the items that they want and remove any friction between those things. Whereas previously on Amazon, you would have had to have paused the frame, gone into Google or gone into Amazon, typed in the thing, tried to describe it, see where it shows up. You know, oh, what was Daenerys wearing on this week's episode? Like that appears to be the example that I've landed on, and trying to go find that product for yourself. So I think this is great for everybody. Advertisers are going to love this because it's instant gratification, and for the same reason that shoppers will. They won't interact with it if they don't want to buy, you know, an item that's in it. So this is, you know, I wouldn't necessarily call it's, I guess it's like a hybrid of discovery advertising and search-based advertising, which is you discovered it because it showed up on your screen and you don't even really have to search for it because it was given to you if you're interested. So I think this is a great mix, and I suspect it'll be really valuable. And it's also going to change partnership deals in terms of, you know, product placements and things like that.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. So there's going to be, you know, huge affiliate programs going on. Brands are going to want to spend a lot more money now trying to get their products in, because once upon a time it was like, hey, you get awareness and, you know, your Walmart bag shows up in screen. Well, now they can buy whatever it is, you know, literally on the screen in real time. And once again, Amazon's at the front of the line. But this is going to happen with NBC and the Peacock network and everything else as well. And so I think it's a good thing.
Definitely. Our last headline to wrap up this segment will be Twitter Blue subscription service. So another interesting spin here. Twitter is working on a $3 a month subscription service called Twitter Blue. Why? The features would include undoing tweets, which is essentially the same as undoing an email, a charge to use TweetDeck, which is obviously their scheduler for those of us in this field, and the ability to super follow users for a small fee in exchange for exclusive content. So correct me if I'm wrong, Julia, but does that mean that these users would be paying a fee in exchange for getting their ads out there?
Well, I think it would be something similar to how Patreon works, where you can pay to get exclusive content. So it would be exclusive tweets or exclusive things that other users are tweeting.
Right. That makes sense. Perfect. Okay.
You were kinder. I was actually going to say OnlyFans, but Patreon is the more savory version of that. But yeah, I think, you know, kudos to Twitter because someone had to be first on this. The fact that, and what I really like about it is not necessarily the Patreon OnlyFans hybrid, although I suppose there's value to it for a lot of different kinds of users, but it's Twitter is jumping ahead and finding a way to monetize their users directly instead of selling their data to get the money. Everybody knows that this third-party data stuff is fading and falling away, and Twitter's sort of jumping in line and saying, let's test it out. Let's, like, if we can get $3 a month out of somebody, $36 a year, instead of having to sell their data directly, you know, could we have a real profitable, line here where users get an ad-free, I don't know if this will be an ad-free experience, but in theory, they could make it an ad-free experience as an option. I suppose you could pay a premium for that. And I suspect some people might, but I expect, it's funny, the theme here of all of the headlines, right, is we know other people are going to follow this trend, or this trend is a copy of somebody else. So Twitter's is partly copied from Patreon and OnlyFans. But I think they're really the first ones jumping in line, getting people to pay for a unique experience in the channel, and potentially at the expense of not having their data sold. So I don't know how well it'll work. Twitter is a much more transient, channel, and in terms of, passive behavior and things like that. So you've got this hybrid model of those two things. And I suspect other channels are going to follow suit. It's been floated for a really long time, even when, your mom was posting on Facebook saying, oh, they're going to make you pay $10 a month for Facebook starting January 1, or they're going to steal all your pictures. Eventually something like that was probably going to come true. And now this is an opportunity to see if it can be profitable and if the users get a better experience. If they don't, then it's not worth it. But I am interested to see how this works out.
Definitely quite the color commentary. But just to add to your point, the subscription would come with the ability to view tweets ad-free, which is interesting.
Oh, it would.
So,
okay. Then there you go.
Yeah, there you go. So kind of jumping into our topic of the week, which is influencer marketing.
I feel like we need a drum roll or something.
Oh, I know. We need some sounds in here.
We'll work on that next week.
Yes. So let's just kick off here. 1, how effective is it? 2, is it even sustainable 3 years from now? The landscape is changing a lot. 3, is it all bullshit? 4, how do we think it will evolve? David, as always, I'm gonna let you kick off on this one. We've got a lot of commentary on this side.
Yeah, I think so too. And I am, as much as I like the sound of my own voice some of the time, I am really interested in hearing your guys' thoughts on this. I think influencer marketing is given a bad name for a lot of reasons. And it also is because I think people don't have the right impression of influencer marketing when they hear the term. They immediately think of, forgive me for generalizing, a 19 to 21-year-old girl in a bikini somewhere holding a protein powder supplement bag, and the next day talking about, something else that she never actually uses, never actually, consistently works with. That's not influence. That's a transaction. In reality, influence has always been the whole purpose of advertising in the first place. If you can be compelled by a brand or somebody else to believe in what it is that a brand is selling or what it is that a brand is saying, that is the power of advertising in general. The reason it is bullshit in the eyes of so many people is because what they're adopting as an influencer strategy or an affiliate strategy is bullshit. They're saying, oh, well, so-and-so's got, 50,000 followers, 200,000 followers. I'm going to pay them X amount of dollars to go talk about this thing that they probably don't actually use, care about, or ever want to look at again, but they're just doing it for the money. People can smell bullshit. So they know from a mile away if that relationship is real. To name drop a client of ours and something that's being done well, Sonia Dakar is a client of ours, a cosmetics and skincare brand based out of LA. They have taken pains to build a very cohesive and authentic relationship with their influencers, to the point where if one of the influencers is featured in the content, they know through time, passing for years at a time, that these individuals not only visit the Sonia Dakar clinic on Rodeo Drive, but that they use their products. It's natural to them. They have an involvement in the selection of the products they use, and even in helping them craft other products that might come about in the future. And it's real and it works. We put that content in our ads, and not just through an affiliate type of model, but through content side by side with the things that the brand is creating. If it's real and it's authentic, people know it, they smell it, they sniff it out over time, and that's how you build legions of followers. So I do think real influencer marketing is sustainable, but those are collaborations. These are not transactions. This is not an affiliate model. I do think there are places for affiliates as perhaps a separate conversation. But if you're just talking about, oh, we gave, 3 people who had a bunch of followers, $50 over the course of 3 weeks and we didn't sell anything. Well, yeah, no shit, because it's not real and everybody knows it. But I've heard my voice enough. I'd love to get your guys' take.
I do think, David, you have a lot of great points, but I think the key word to take away is actually long-term. So having those long-term authentic strategies is what kind of makes it sustainable, if it really is. I think that Something else we're actually going to talk about in our list here is really the difference between how effective influencers are depending on what tier they could be, whether it is nano, micro, or obviously, like, I don't even know what it'd be called, like macro, like the ultimate influencer if you have more than 1 million followers.
Oh, let's call them mega.
Mega, yeah. Yeah, like a mega influencer. And honestly, the more followers someone has, there's a great point brought up here where they actually have less converting power, right? Because they're pockets of people, like it's no longer like a niche area anymore, or niche, I don't know. Regardless.
Yes. Yeah, I think the answer is yes.
Yeah, it's like whatever. We'll get into semantics later, but yes, I feel like they do have less converting power. They do have very diverse demographics, and again, how authentic is it? How can you always consistently appeal to so many people at all times? Like, you need to have something, like you need to have a competitive edge. So that is very important. But we are kind of skipping around a little bit. We will define kind of the different levels and which is the most effective, depending on what basically a campaign objective would be. But I think something that we should jump back into is what industries truly benefit the most from influencers. Obviously, skincare is a great example. A lot of women are likely to follow influencers. But in terms of, is it, I don't know, fitness? Is it apparel? Is it skincare? Is it just D2C brands in general? Like, who really has the ability to benefit from an influencer relationship? And conversely, what industry like really doesn't? I mean, there's so many things to kind of say about this.
Yeah, it's a good question, because I think let me just use the word influence. I think influence is valuable in any industry, and I hate answers that are every or none, because I know there tends to be some dishonesty in there. But influence in general is how we navigate our lives. You know, I have somebody who's going to be redoing some gardening for us, right? They are hired. We hired them because of influence. We knew a peer who had a good experience, you know, with them in our neighborhood, and so that influenced our decision to, you know, to interact with them. So I think all industries can use influence. Now, in terms of influencer marketing, let's use ourselves as an example. As a you know, an e-commerce agency, I don't think it would really work for us in the way that most people think of when you talk about like an influencer. So let's say Julia, for example, was not an employee of ours, but she instead was a hired influencer for a, you know, a certain amount of money over time. And Julia was just, you know, randomly posting content across her social media channels about, you know, how great we are at geo-targeting or something, or crafting, you know, really cool integrated e-commerce strategies. I don't think it would land the same way, because it's not how people arrive at their decision to choose an agency. So as an example, so influence still matters, and having a peer network of those who understand and value your work and finding a way to set them on fire for you as ambassadors, so to speak, could work. But I don't see it as a true social media, you know, type of play. But it really, you know, I think you talked about skincare. I agree. Anything that's very visually driven, or we talked about the brain and the body sides of our business. The body side of the business, if you can wear it, eat it, you know, apply it, whatever you want to call it, those I think are categories that are all great for consumable products, or are a natural fit for influencers. So you talk about skincare, we talk about retail and e-com brands. You know, if I'm wearing a t-shirt, or, you know, if I did my hair a certain way, I can't, but with certain products or something like that, those things I think show really well. D2C brands are really powerful. But I'd be interested in talking to an actual influencer who we have on our chat here, Julia, the plant influencer.
Yes, the plant influencer. Yeah,
the plant influencer. Yeah, what are your thoughts? I obviously, we're talking about some that work. There's nothing that immediately comes to mind that wouldn't, where influence doesn't work. But I don't know in a literal sense if you have some thoughts on that.
Industries where you might not think that influencers work, and they might not work in the traditional sense of like, let me pose holding this product and, you know, hashtag ad in the caption. But I think there are some unique ways that you can use influencers in certain industries. Hot takes.
I can talk about, interestingly enough, so my wife is expecting our first child, and it's really exciting. There are a whole bunch of like baby nurses and stuff on Instagram who, you know, have a lot of experience with a lot of the things that first time moms and dads have no idea about. And they have built, you know, entire content catalogs and classes and courses, some of which, you know, my wife has purchased, through, mom influencers and stuff like that, or, or baby nurses and things like that too. So maybe that's not an example that would surprise people or whatever, but I do agree that there's really very few categories that you can't think of the value of influence. And if there is somebody who can be influential in that space, then there has to be a way for them to communicate through social and digital channels that it is effective. So maybe I'm going to disagree with myself. I will say for DB and Partners, as an agency, I don't think an influencer relationship would necessarily work for us. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there are some people out there who, are somewhere high above in the career, who are known as experts to talk about marketing and advertising philosophically and at a high level. But I imagine, if somebody like, I'm trying to think, Scott Galloway, who I think is, like a well-known marketing guru, NYU professor who's been on Bill Maher several times and stuff. He's a known marketing leader and voice. If he had said all these things that I'm talking about, DB and Partners is a great, agency who embodies these values, then the power of influence would work there. So yeah, I think the real roundabout answer to Nicole's original question is, if it's done well, if it's done authentically and consistently over time, which I know is one of the overarching themes, then influence is the most time-tested success method in all of advertising. It's anybody who doesn't see that is not approaching it the right way.
All right. I do agree with all of this. Again, colorful commentary as always. So the last question, kind of to wrap this up, is which influencers are more popular and / or making the most money, Instagram or TikTok? Because landscape is changing so much.
I'm going to take a stab at this and say I still think it's Instagram. Instagram has a proven path to actually driving revenue for brands, and that's been established over several years. TikTok it can't be far behind, and I imagine that brands are throwing a lot of money at some of these individuals because they're growing so rapidly. TikTok is obviously a channel that is a force to be reckoned with. Gen Z has already surpassed usage of TikTok past Instagram. They use that channel more than they use Instagram already. So there's no question where it's headed. But I think the question that TikTok still has in general, even with its ad platform, is that attention profitable? I'm sure the answer is yes. But in terms of the right methods and the right ways to do it, I think that part is still in question a little bit. So my answer today is Instagram. My answer tomorrow is probably TikTok. But I think they've got some work to do to figure out the model.
I will say, hand up.
Hand up.
I will say from a brand awareness standpoint, it's definitely TikTok. From a buying power standpoint, it's going to be Instagram. And just kind of bring it back to like common sense right now, who really has a credit card? Like a child that's on TikTok and they're like 12 to 15. What are they going to do? Like stop what they're doing and then ask their mom and dad for like their credit card or like money to buy something? Like you do have like that real life kind of like hiccup or that barrier that's a path to purchase, right? Mm-hmm. So I think with Instagram, it's more direct. Things are already built in, especially with new shoppable posts and Instagram shops in general. I definitely think, again, buying power, it's just really Instagram, and you can have those bottom line results instantly delivered to you. Yep. So I guess I'll let Julia kind of chime in with her Gen Z thoughts on that, since she is a big TikToker for us.
Yeah, she is.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree on the most part with you, Nicole, but I do think that the 12 to 15-year-olds do have the buying power. There is the barrier, obviously, but I think if you get a 15-year-old hooked on a very specific and expensive Starbucks drink, the immediate reaction to everybody, we're going to Starbucks on dad's credit card and we're buying, everybody's trying this drink, we're going back tomorrow. I think the maybe not 12, but definitely the 15 to 18, the buying power I think is there, especially on TikTok. A lot of the comments I see on viral videos is the way I ran to Etsy, the way I ran to Etsy for this, the way I ran, it's like, obviously they're not running, but you know what I'm
right.
Internet running.
I got you. I see what you're doing.
What I think the only problem is in particular for small businesses who use this kind of like influencer leverage, is if the TikTok blows up and they can't match that demand, it's kind of gone. It's you missed your chance, you missed your opportunity. TikTok doesn't have a great way of following someone and consistently seeing their posts, and especially for small businesses, if they're not posting every single day, multiple TikToks a day, you're kind of lost in the sauce, if you will, lost in the For You page. You missed your opportunity. So it does have a huge platform to leverage, but it doesn't always work out if you don't do it right.
Sure. And it sounds like consistency is a key, right? Like one of the things we've talked about, and we'll tell each of you who's listening very transparently, this podcast and this video is not meant to be an instant ROI type of thing, right? But it is our hope that over time, this is going to serve as a platform to have people tuning in to maybe at first see what it's about, learn a couple things about topics that they care about as professionals, and over time, establish that credibility that, wow, these guys are consistent. They're always churning out good content, whether it's for me one week or not the next. I know that they're reliable and accountable, and that's that top of mind awareness that is going to, our mission is to make the DB and Partners name known to a general public over time who is probably not thinking about us today. And I think, that's one of the overarching themes. And Julia, I think your point is well taken. The brands that are going to really continue to succeed on TikTok are the ones who will be there consistently. And that's probably also true for the influencer relationships that they develop over time too.
And that about wraps up our episode. But before we close out, I will segue into the marketing module for today. Hidden Valley Ranch sold thousands of their ranch powder packets after TikTok went viral. The user showed how you can pour the powdered ranch into the pickle jar, leaving it in the fridge overnight, and get ranch flavored pickles the next day. TikToks are now being made as people try the hack and taste it for themselves. So mazel, hats off to Hidden Valley Ranch. For the marketing malfunction for today, we're going to tie it back into our topic of today's program, which was influencer marketing. Basically, we have a whole bunch of malfunctions, but the most recent being Courtney Shields, who is a very famous fashion influencer, ranks over 1 million followers on Instagram. She had a faux pas with an Abercrombie collaboration this past week, in which there was a lot of damage control because she was caught and called out for filtering her photos and changing her sizes, photoshopping her legs to be thinner than they actually are compared to Abercrombie's real posts. A whole bunch of nasty stuff came out this past week, and we really don't know how that contract will end up. So these are things happening in the influencer world. Once you get down, you dig dirty in it. It's kind of scary. So we will stay out of that. And thanks for listening.
We'll see you next week on episode 3. Thanks again.
Bye, guys.